Thank you all for joining us. This is our second of two webinars that we've hosted on the topic of clicks. My name is Susan Romanek, and I am a member of the Fulton County Schools Communications team. And I'd just like to thank you all for joining us tonight. You had a lot of things you could have done tonight. We hope you've had a good dinner and that perhaps you've had some quiet time. And now that you're able to join us for an hour-long webinar about internet safety. If you would like, please continue eating your dinner or doing whatever it is you might need to do, and just listen along with us. In a few minutes, I'm going to turn over the screen to Dr. Emily Bell. She's our Chief Information Officer. You just might have seen her a few moments ago, and she's going to be our moderator tonight. This is part two of what we hosted earlier today, and it's also part of our informational series to help parents help their children safely navigate the online world. Last spring, we held an online safety seminar at Innovation Academy and Global Impact Academy, and this is just one other way that we're trying to reach our parents and give them information. Just to give you some ground rules for tonight, we're going to all try to be good digital citizens. You're going to hear that word a lot tonight. But we're asking everyone, if you're not a presenter, to please keep your microphones muted. If not, we're able to mute them for you, but we just don't want any extra noise if we can avoid that. If you could, please hold asking any live questions during the webinar. We'll have an opportunity for Q&A at the end where you can actually speak and ask those questions, or you can feel free to put them in the chat room right now, and we can be monitoring those chats as we go along. We do have folks in the chat room who are keeping tabs of things. This webinar is being recorded, so we can post it online afterwards, and it can be a resource. If you're not able to capture some information the way you want, you can always go back and review that again. It'll be on the website for our home internet safety site, which you'll see the web address at the bottom of our screen. That's fultonschools.org/home internet safety. And we encourage you to visit that site for more info. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to Dr. Bell, our Chief Information Officer.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you again for being here. As Susan mentioned, you could do a lot of other things, but you chose to be here with us to learn more about how to keep your students safe at home while using the internet and digital resources. So we definitely appreciate you being here tonight. And as Susan mentioned at the end of the presentation, you're welcome to ask questions, and again, post your questions in the chat if you want. As Susan alluded to, that internet, that website address at the bottom of the slide points to a page of numerous resources that we have posted there for our families. We have partnered with internet service providers, with all kinds of businesses to lift up any kind of helpful hints and information that they may have to keep our students safe at home. And as Susan alluded to, we did some sessions like this last spring, and those recordings are posted there. And I'm happy to say that our presenters here tonight, one of them, in fact, Special Agent Jackie Giddens, was with us last spring in some of those sessions, and we're so glad to have her back with us again tonight. She's going to have some amazing information for you from her lens of the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. We also have with us Heather Van Looy. She is our Director of Instructional Technology, and she will be presenting lots of information about digital citizenship. As Susan mentioned, we talk a lot about digital citizenship. We even mentioned it last spring in our sessions, but Heather is going to bring a lot more details around that whole concept of digital citizenship and even some metrics that I think you will find really fascinating and will drive our work around how we keep students safe. And then, of course, we have Miss Tina Chris. She is a METI. That's what we call our Media and Education Technology Instructors. She comes to us from Banneker High School, and so she will talk to us about, from the school perspective, what we do at the schools to help educate our students. So you're going to find out things that you can do at home to keep your students safe while they're at home, but we also want you to find out what we're doing at the school to educate your students in terms of digital internet safety. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Heather Van Looy, who's going to talk to us about the digital citizenship. Heather?
It would help if I would turn myself off mute. Thank you, Dr. Bell, for the introduction. I wanted to give everybody a little bit of information about me. In addition to my work at the district office, I am also a Fulton County Schools graduate. I went to Fulton County Schools from 4th grade through 12th grade. And then after going to college, I came back to Fulton to be a teacher, and I taught for 15 years in both the elementary and middle school level. And then I moved on to district leadership, and I'm also a Fulton County parent. So I have a 6th grader in Fulton. So I am dealing with a lot of the same issues and concerns that many of you are dealing with around screen time. And, I'm lucky that I have a son who really enjoys being outside. He's a baseball player and he wants to be outside and playing with his friends. But when he is inside, that phone is right there. He's, YouTube is his best friend. And we really have to battle that screen time concerns that I know all of you are working on as well. All right, next slide, please. So we're going to start out by just talking a little bit about what does it mean to be a digital citizen. We're going to watch a real quick video from Common Sense Media that's going to give us an introduction, and then we'll dive into that topic just a little bit more. Is that playing for everybody, or does Susan have to start it?
It should be playing, hopefully.
It's not. All right. The video wasn't playing for me, so I was just starting to type in the chat. Can somebody tell me when it's over? So we define digital citizenship as responsible use of technology to learn, to create, and to participate. So we all know that our students have this access to technology greater than we've ever had before, and that is amazing. It allows us to do some really remarkable, fun, engaging, joyful, innovative things in the classroom and beyond. But it also comes with a lot of challenges. In addition to our students being able to collaborate together and create things, and, I was at a school today where students were connecting with other people via Microsoft Flip from Japan and Africa, and they were talking about different global issues and they were really expanding their perspectives. So the technology use has a lot of amazing issues and uses that students can be exposed to things that they would never be exposed to in any other way, but it also poses challenges for them. And so we've really got to help them navigate this digital world and really understand how to be responsible and safe online, as well as managing their feelings and balancing their lives. And that's what digital citizenship is really all about. Fulton County, I'm really proud that we have been committed to digital citizenship since 2016, when we first did our very first one-to-one rollout. We recognized that if we were going to be putting devices into the hands of students at a greater rate than ever before, we needed to really equip them with the skills that they needed in order to navigate that responsibly. And so we use the materials from Common Sense Media, and we have been a Common Sense district since 2016. And what that means is that all of our schools every year go through teaching some lessons from Common Sense Media in all grades K through 12 to receive their certification from Common Sense Media. And then we as a district, once all of our schools have gone through that, we're able to apply for recognition as well. Next slide. So that Common Sense Media curriculum that we use was created in connection with Project Zero from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And it is really guided by research, but in addition to being guided by research, it's guided by feedback and things that they have heard from children and from parents about what they struggle with in navigating that digital world. The content is organized around 6 core topics that spiral so that every year students are getting exposed to these 6 core topics at at a level that is age appropriate for them, but they build on that content year after year so that they're really addressing all these different areas, including media balance and digital and well-being, privacy and security, passwords, cyber safety, news and media literacy, cyberbullying, like all these different areas that give us a lot of depth to what that curriculum is all about, so that we are able to have some conversation with students at school and give them examples of real life situations that help them to start to navigate. And there are a lot of resources on the Common Sense Media website that are for parents that are designed to help you have conversations with your students at home about these same topics. So if we look at the digital landscape by the numbers, we can see that students who are children under the age of 8 are spending about 2.5 hours a day on screen time and using media. And most of that time is spent watching television or videos. As we move up in age, that number rises to 7 hours and 22 minutes for teens. And again, the majority of that time is spent TV watching and video watching, with a little bit bigger chunk as they get older being added in with video games. But a lot of time that is spent on these devices that is passive time. And if you look at those numbers by socioeconomics, higher income homes spend less time on screens than our lower income homes, which is just widening that digital divide that we know already exists, that we are constantly trying to make sure that we narrow. So what can we do about that to help our students have more balance? That's what we're going to talk about next. So one thing that's really important to think about when you're thinking about screen time is that not all screen time is created equal, right? We talked about how the big bulk of the time that students are spending is on passive consumption, watching TV, listening to music. Then as they get a little bit older, a little bit more of that goes to interactive consumption, like playing games and browsing the internet. Well, there's also this other part of the spectrum that's educational and content creation. Can we mute participants, please? So that educational and content creation is not the same kind of interaction with social media and screen time. So it's important to really be thinking about those two things. When we think about studies that have been done around screen time, most of those studies are focusing on watching television and video games. Most studies have not focused on educational interactions. But in 2019, there was a study that was published in the Journal of Behavioral Nutrition and Journal of Behavioral Nutrition and Physical Activity, and they analyzed the screen time of over 4,000 students from ages 10 to 14 over the course of 4 years, where they had those students categorize the kinds of content that they were doing into these 4 categories. And what they found was that educational screen time was associated with positive educational outcomes, and it did not have negative relations with other outcomes. So that just really highlights this idea of when we're looking at how our students are using their time online, it's important to think about the quality of the activities that they're doing. And later on in the presentation, we're going to hear from our GBI expert about some tools that you have for how you can look at what are your students spending their time on their devices and how can you identify what kinds of activities that they're doing. All right. So some strategies that you can use at home to encourage media balance and well-being. Create screen-free times and zones. Like I know in my house, we try and put screens down, no screens at dinner time. And we also have no screens in the bedroom after bedtime. So my son charges his phone in the kitchen. When he got his phone, we really established clear family rules by using we actually have a cell phone contract that we went through, and there were things that I put in there that were important. There were things that he put in there that were important. And we really negotiated and talked about some of the things that were going to be on there and what would be the deal breakers. So again, it's that ongoing communication with your kids and setting those clear family rules and expectations. I'm also an advocate of using some parental controls. We are an Apple family. My son and I have iPhones, and I really utilize the screen time tools and privacy controls within Apple. Watch and play together. The more that you're engaging with your kid, the more you have things that you can talk to them about that are things that are interesting to them, but the more that you also know what they're doing and what they're engaging in, so you can have those conversations. And that allows you to help identify healthy behaviors and teach your kids to think about how they feel. Just last week, my son and I looked at his screen time usage, and we both agreed together that we felt like he was spending too much time on YouTube. And we talked about how that made him feel. And he said, I don't like that I'm spending so much time on there, but it's easy to get sucked in. So we decided together that we were going to set a limit for that app in screen time so that we could help him to moderate his online behaviors. And finally, modeling the behavior that you want to see. I use my phone for everything. And it's hard for me sometimes to put down or to realize, oh, I am spending way too much time on my phone doing different things, or I'm not fully engaging with him when we're having conversation because I'm distracted. I need to put it away. But the more that we can model what we want to see from kids, the more they will be able to internalize those practices and put them into play for themselves. TAP into Internet Device Safety is a really good acronym that is going to help you to think about some of those things we've just talked about. Time, restricting the time on the device, access, using those parental controls, and then finally, really teaching your kids about good password protection. Help them to choose passwords that meet the complexity requirements that are going to help keep them safe, and teach them that they need to not be sharing their passwords with other people. Those three things are going to be really good strategies to get you on the right path with your kids to keeping them safe. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tina Chris from Banneker, and she's going to talk more about some of the specific things that Common Sense Media curriculum teaches and what we're doing with students in the schools.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Tina Chris, and I am the Media and Educational Technology Instructor at Banneker High School. I, like Heather, am a graduate of Fulton County Schools, and I have the pleasure of actually coming back to my community. I actually graduated. I'm an alumni of the Banneker community. My children also attended Fulton County Schools. I graduated from the University of Georgia after high school and went on to work in the field of advertising and project management prior to joining Fulton County Schools 7 years ago as the METI. One of my proudest moments was receiving the Laura Bush Grant for American Libraries, and I used that award money to create a college and career readiness section within my library. Um, I also serve as the school lead on our Fulton County Schools Vanguard team, which is the instructional technology coaching team for Fulton County Schools. And I am on the METI advisory committee. So as Heather said, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we tackle digital citizenship at the school level. Now, as the METI, we don't actually facilitate the lessons, but we ensure that um, the teachers and the students are actually participating in digital citizenship to make sure that we meet the qualifications. And there are 6 core topics, and it doesn't matter K through 12. Each of the lessons will pertain to these 6 core topics. Media balance and well-being. We're going to make sure that the students are checking to see the role of digital media in their lives. Students will examine the positive and negative impacts of digital media, and they'll use digital. We want to see how much you're using digital devices. Digital devices have become such a part of us that sometimes you just don't think about how much you're actually using them. So students will analyze in this lesson how much you're using digital devices. You want to think about sometimes when we're thinking about impact, you don't think about negative and positive impact of the use of the devices. So we do a habit check. And sometimes you want to just see if there are any habits that you need to change. And the habit can be a positive or a negative habit. I know for me, I may not use social media enough, whereas some students may use social media too much. As an educator, I don't tweet a lot, whereas some students, of course, are tweeting too much. So we ask that they really dig deep and that they are really analyzing what they're doing. We look at brainstorm ways to unplug from social media. Heather mentioned earlier that her son is not allowed to charge his device in his bedroom. And that's a really good tip. For each of the lessons, we send home family tip sheets. We post family tips online. I know for me, I'm also our website manager, so I post family tips on our website. For the purpose of this webinar, we have family tips here. One here is to model the behavior that you want to see. Make sure that if there are behaviors that you would like for your child to change, that you're actually modeling that behavior yourself. Privacy and security. How do you protect your online reputation? Students will learn about phishing in this lesson, phishing and other online theft. We'll talk about apps and websites that have age restrictions. Students will learn about the type of information that's actually being collected about them on different apps and websites. Parents, I know that sometimes you think that because a website has an age restriction, that that's enough protection. However, there are always workarounds. They can actually, your student can just check the box that says, I am 13, I am 18, and the site will let them in. So we ask that you do occasional checks. You check the privacy consent forms occasionally with your students so that you're making sure to see what type of information these websites are actually collecting, and to see if you're okay with that information, what things are being shared about your child. Um, Another thing about privacy and online reputations, what type of things are your students sharing about other students? Students, they take pictures and they're tagging their friends. Are their friends okay with being tagged? Sometimes it's innocent, but these things happen. When you're tagging someone, you're also opening them up to other people. So these are things that we just don't think about. We think about the information that's being collected about you and how targeted advertising, how that occurs. These are things that you have to look at. You think that just because you delete your browsing history, that protects you, but it doesn't. So you do periodic checks just to make sure that you've deleted cookies and cleared your browsing history. Next. Digital footprint and identity, that goes along with your privacy and security. Your digital reputation, it's like your fingerprints. It's a trace of everywhere that you've been online. And we talk about protecting that. Students, I don't think that our children think that they're going to grow up. They don't think about the future, that they're going to someday have to search for jobs. We teach them that there there will be someone somewhere sitting. There are people that are hired just to look at your social media. And for some reason, I always get somebody that says, oh, but my Instagram is private, or I have a private account. And they don't believe that there's always someone smarter than they are. So we talk about these things. We talk about how your digital reputation is always there. Um, we also talk about how they should be responsible enough to protect other people, something that I mentioned earlier. And parents, I just want to tell you that when you are so proud that you want to post pictures of your students, your children, make sure that you don't have other children in those photos and that you have permission to post the other children. Um, we have incidents all the time where parents are coming in for birthday celebrations or honors nights or band night, and they're like, hey, get in the photo, all of you get in, and they snap a photo and they're posting their student, but there are other students in the photo. And did you check with that student to see how they feel about being posted? Did you ask their parent if it was okay to post that child? Because like me, I'm someone who I don't really care to be posted on Facebook, and I have a friend that posts me all the time. My own mother, she's probably sent this link out to everyone in her social club. So everyone knows that I'm making this presentation tonight. So these are just things that you want to check before you share someone else's information. Just ask yourself, how would you feel if other people were posting things about you without your approval? Next. Relationships and communication. The importance of civil communication online. We have an acronym, COOL, and that stands for staying calm, open-minded, only focused on the ideas and listening actively. We know that when we talk about hot button topics, things can get heated really fast. We also know that when we're talking online, everybody can get really gutsy. It's easy to get real brave behind the shield of your laptop, right? So we just ask that when you're online, watch what you say. Think about how someone else feels. Um, but also, even when someone may offend you online, before you respond, be civil. Think about the acronym COOL. Respond calmly, be open minded. Perhaps even with text messages, I absolutely hate texting because it can be perceived in a way that the person just did not mean it. And what if you're in your feelings that day? You know? So be open minded. Maybe they didn't mean it the way that you took it. Stay focused on the idea and listen actively. You know, we encourage the students to pause and think before they respond. Remember okay, so no, you can go on, you can go on. I think we're at cyberbullying. Okay. Cyberbullying, digital drama, and hate speech. So again, it goes back to staying cool. Um, but cyberbullying and bullying, they're they're tied together, but they're a little different. Cyberbullying again, um, it occurs probably more frequently and you because people get very courageous in the comfort of their own home or behind the screens of their devices, right? So we actually discussed this one a lot. The digital drama, oh my goodness, especially in high school, there is so much digital drama. And we just encourage our students to breathe and to think their ways through it. But we ask them to just look at a variety of ways that they can respond to cyberbullies, to hate speech, to digital drama. You don't always have to react. You don't always have to respond. And most of the time, if you just take a second to think before you respond, the students are empowered to solve their own issues. But if they escalate, once the students have tried to de-escalate the situations, we also teach our teachers how to step in and help with these issues. And that goes back to our teachers also taking these digital citizenship lessons annually. Next. News and media literacy. How do we identify credible and trustworthy information? This is actually one of my favorite lessons as I actually have a degree in broadcast news from the University of Georgia. So I jump into this one heavily. And as the Medi, this is where we really get to dig in. I do a lot of research. We're information specialists as Medis. So this one here really hits home for us. The district has purchased at the high school level 31 databases that we get to share with our students, where we use those to help them to find credible sources outside of Google. We talk about why you can't just Google it, but if you do Google it, how you can do research and look for credible sources within that space. We're using um, places like YouTube and TikTok, and we're looking at viral video at a rate that we've never seen before, and videos are going viral all the time. How do we know how to spot the real ones from the fake ones? We teach all of that stuff. But we also teach about lateral sourcing, which is simply when you pull up information, when you're doing research, you just dig deeper. So I teach them how to have more than one web browser open. So if I pull up an article that's written by Tina Chris, and she says that the University of Georgia is the best university out of 100, then you ought to know that she actually graduated from there. And that's why she's saying that. So you want to know, who's this Tina Chris girl? So these are things that we actually teach them. That's it.
All right. Hi, guys. My name's Jackie Gittens. I'm a special agent with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. And before I get started with my presentation, I just want to say how impressed I am with our first two presenters. The information that's being pushed out to all of the Fulton County students is phenomenal. And I wish more schools were pushing this information out to their students. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, my name is Jackie Gittens. I'm a special agent with the GBI and have been employed with the GBI for the last 10 years. When I began my career with the GBI, I started out as the child abuse specialist at the Milledgeville field office. After 4 years of being the child abuse specialist, I transferred to the child exploitation and computer crimes unit here at GBI headquarters in Decatur, where I now specialize in online sexual exploitation of children investigations. I predominantly investigate individuals who manufacture, possess, and distribute child sexual abuse material, or more commonly referred to as child pornography, on the internet. I also investigate online predators who may be enticing and exploiting children online, as well as child sex trafficking. So you can say that I've spent my entire career trying to keep all of our Georgia children safe. My presentation tonight will focus on topics to help keep your home and family safe with regards to the internet. I'll first address how to protect your home internet from online predators, then discuss some resources and tools you can use to teach your children about online safety. After that, we'll discuss an online monitoring tool and discuss what to do if you suspect your child is ever the victim of online exploitation. So let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, before we can discuss how to keep your child safe online, we have to discuss how to keep your home safe. So the easiest way to do this would be to password protect your home internet or your Wi-Fi. You always want to make sure to use a complicated password. I know a lot of times, and this is true for my home internet, is the password is located on the back of the Wi-Fi box. Certain times you can change that password to make it more complicated. Other times you may not be able to. If you're ever concerned about how to change your Wi-Fi password, contact your internet service provider. It's important that you don't share your internet password with others, especially individuals that you don't trust or you don't know well. Certainly, we all want to share our Wi-Fi password with, our family and close friends, but we want to be mindful of who we share our password with. All internet activity will be traced back to your account and to your residence. So if you don't have a password protected Wi-Fi or internet, anyone can roam around your neighborhood, search for open Wi-Fi connections. And if your Wi-Fi is not protected, they can connect to your internet. And if they're engaging in any type of illegal activity, that will ultimately trace back to you. And if that illegal activity is concerning the sexual exploitation of children online, then there's likely to be a search warrant executed at your residence by my office, just due to all of the internet activity resolving back to your internet account. If you do consider sharing your Wi-Fi password with others, just be mindful that you may want to change your password periodically, whether that's every quarter, every month, or every 6 months. As you can see on the graphic to the right, this shows when your Wi-Fi is password protected. As you can see, the Wi-Fi network name is Mary, and right next to the Wi-Fi signal, there's a lock graphic, which basically indicates that the internet is password protected. All right, so how can you keep your child safe online? There's multiple ways that you can do so. The ones that we're going to focus on are right here on our screen. We want to teach our children how to be safe online. We want to set parental controls on the child's cell phone. Periodically examine your child's cell phone. I like the idea of having a contract between the parent and the child about what is expected about their online activity and their cell phone usage. That way, both parties are aware of the agreed upon terms. How often you examine your child's cell phone is dependent on each particular family. Some families may try to examine the child's cell phone every day. Some may try to do it on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, maybe a quarterly basis. It's just what works for your family. There's no right or wrong answer here, just as long as you're periodically checking to see what applications, what websites, and who your child is talking to. I like the idea of taking the phone away at night, especially charging the phone, like our previous presenters stated, charging the cell phone in the kitchen and keeping the phone out of the bedroom at nighttime. When I give these online safety presentations, we say children who are using their phone in the privacy of their bedroom at night when parents are sleeping, you're essentially inviting an online predator into your child's bedroom. Even though they're not actually in the bedroom, they have the possibility to connect with an online predator through the internet. You also want to educate yourself about popular apps that your child may have installed on their cell phone. And I'll show you some tools about how to educate yourself on some of the less popular apps. And then lastly, we'll go over a cell phone monitoring tool that I feel is really good, that can help you keep a bird's eye view over your child's device and what they're doing online. All right, so netsmarts.org. You can access this website by going to www.missingkids.org/netsmarts. And this particular website is affiliated with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NCMEC for short. NCMEC's main mission is to assist law enforcement with finding missing children. They were responsible for printing missing children's photos on the back of milk cartons back in the day, and now also with the electronic billboards that you see on the side of the highways. They also assist law enforcement with child exploitation, and they also help law enforcement and the public with preventing future victimization. So NetSmart has resources to teach children anywhere between ages 5 and 17 about making smart decisions online and being responsible digital citizens. Resources include age-specific PowerPoints, videos, games, handouts, things like that students can use to learn more about online safety techniques. What's great about NetSmarts is that they categorize their resources and training material based on age. So they will categorize certain material for elementary level students, middle school, and high school students. It's important to note that NetSmarts is not just for students, it's also for parents too. Resources for parents include the same online guides, handouts, PowerPoints, and videos. This slide right here has a few examples of reference material for parents and include topics such as Parents' Guide to Smartphone Safety, Internet Safety at Home, Protecting Your Kids Online 2.0, Social Media Safety for Teens. It's also important to note that I use this website to gather information and resources for some of the cybercrime and internet safety presentations that I give to schools and community members. So again, this is resources that I use to help educate myself and resources that I push out to the community to use. All right, parental controls. We've talked a little bit about parental controls in some of our previous presentations. Parental controls prevent children from accessing inappropriate, unsuitable, or illegal content online. For the purpose of my presentation, we are going to focus on parental controls for electronic devices such as cell phones, tablets, computers, as well as search engine settings. All right, it's no secret that kids love their electronic devices, whether they're playing video games, texting friends, or checking out the latest TikTok viral video. They are constantly connected to their electronic device and the internet. Cell phone parental controls are tools designed to give parents more control over the child's phone and limit the type of websites that can be visited or the apps that can be downloaded or used on their devices. There are simple ways to limit screen time and purchases, control access to the content your child views, monitor your child's activities, and preserve family privacy. You just have to know how to locate and activate those features. I apologize for any of our Android users out there. I am strictly an Apple iPhone user, so most of my graphics are going to be iPhones, but it's important to note that both Apple and Android cell phones have parental controls that allow parents and guardians to allow or restrict different types of cell phone usage. As you can see on the diagram to the left, you can allow or restrict built-in apps. These are the apps that already are downloaded on your phone when you purchase them. And they can include, as you see there, Mail, Safari, FaceTime, AirDrop, App Store to be on your child's device. You can also allow or restrict access to certain websites. As you can see on the top right diagram, you can set your kids' devices to allow unrestricted access to websites. You can limit adult websites or never allow certain websites that you determine are unsafe or not age appropriate for your child. You can also install special web browsers that are designed to display only kid-friendly content. For more information, if you're not familiar with how to access these features, just visit the Apple or Android website for easy to follow instructions. If you go to the Apple website, you will see these same slides on their website. For Android, they actually have easy to follow videos that you can follow to learn more how to set parental controls. On the bottom left, you can also prevent your child from installing or deleting apps on their cell phone. So if you're a family that decides you don't want your child to have access to TikTok or Snapchat, you can set controls which do not allow your child to download that particular app. If you're a family that likes to have GPS tracking on your child's device, such as Life 360, you can prevent them from deleting that app so that you can always be aware of your child's whereabouts. All right, so screen time. We've heard from our previous presenters about screen time. Parents can also set limits on screen time for each of your children's devices. Screen time lets you know how much time your kids are spending on their device, which apps they are spending the most amount of time on, specific times of day that the child is accessing these apps on their devices. So you can see, is your child accessing TikTok or Snapchat during school hours, or are they mostly accessing apps in the evening or after bedtime? Excuse me. As an investigator, this is a tool that I use quite frequently to determine what apps my suspects are using to target children online. So if it's good for law enforcement investigators to use, this is a great tool for parents to use on their children's devices as well. And on the right graphic, as you can see, you always want to ensure that all family electronics are up to date with the latest security updates. Security updates help keep your information secure from online hackers. All right, so parents, do you know which apps are on your child's cell phone? If you do you know? That's great, but then do you also know what each app does? I'm going to throw out some apps that are really popular nowadays on children's cell phones. Let me find my notes. All right, so popular apps that we're seeing on children's cell phones is TikTok, Kik, Discord, Dropbox, MeWe, Telegram, Whisper, Sessions, things like that. If any of those apps that I mentioned you're not familiar with, please take the time to research them. Again, this goes back to examining your child's cell phone to see what apps that they're using. If you're not up to date about the most popular apps that your child is using, I strongly recommend, again, like I said, checking your child's cell phone to see what apps are on there, and then just doing a quick Google search to see what each app is and what the applications are used for. Educate yourself so you can determine if the apps on your child's cell phone are age appropriate and safe. So unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go over all of the apps that are found on your child's cell phone and what they can be used for. But again, take the time to see what apps are on your child's cell phone and then educate yourself online with a quick Google search. All right, so Bark. Let me first start out by prefacing that Bark is not endorsed by Fulton County Schools, nor is it endorsed by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. However, this is a tool that I have researched, and it's also affiliated with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Remember, this is the same organization that assists law enforcement with investigating child exploitation online, and it also funds the website NetSmarts that offers the resources and tools for students and parents about online safety. So for this reason, I feel Bark is a really good monitoring tool that monitors the activity on your child's device. It's compatible with Apple and Android cell phones, tablets, laptops, computers. And what it does is it monitors your child's social media presence, text messaging content. It assists parents with managing screen time and web filtering and so much more. As you can see on the top left, Bark monitors over 30 of the most popular apps and social media platforms. So again, as parents, we can't always be that helicopter parent that's constantly checking their child's device. So this is just a tool that can be used in the background of your child's cell phone to monitor what's going on. Can we go to the next slide? All right, so this slide just shows additional features that Bark offers, such as location alerts, website filtering, and screen time management. The way Bark works is that it will send automatic alerts to the parent or guardian when it detects potential issues such as cyberbullying, discussions about self-harm, sexual content, drugs and alcohol. And then it will also provide recommendations for addressing each issue with your child. And then this slide just gives some statistics from a 2020 case study that Bark conducted about the messages it monitored on children's devices. As you can see, Bark monitors content that includes violent content, mental health topics such as depression and anxiety, bullying, drug and alcohol conversations, self-harm, suicide, and sexual content. So if this is something that you'd be interested in learning more about, just do a quick Google search for Bark monitoring, and you can get more information from that. Again, it's just another tool in your toolbox that can help you monitor your child's internet activity and help keep them safe online. All right. If you ever suspect that your child is the victim of online exploitation, please contact your local police department or sheriff's office to report the activity. I need everybody to listen. If you haven't listened to anything that I've said so far, please listen to this. Please do not delete any chat conversations, text conversations, or any inappropriate content, whether that's photos or videos that your child may have sent out, such as nude photos or images of themselves, or any type of inappropriate contact that they have received from an online predator before reporting to law enforcement. Law enforcement has tools to download all the content on a cell phone that can be used as evidence against an online predator. Once law enforcement has examined and processed your child's cell phone, which contains the evidence of the illegal activity, then you can delete or factory reset the device. But it's very important. I know it can be alarming when your child comes up to you and says that they're being exploited online, and nude photographs or videos that they've sent to an online user can be very, very, very alarming, and a lot of parents don't know what to do. And so the first thing they do is delete everything off the cell phone. Basically, you're deleting evidence that law enforcement can use moving forward in a successful prosecution of an online predator. You also want to make a note of any screen names, phone numbers, or any identifying information of the online predator and report that to law enforcement. If you don't feel comfortable reporting the illegal activity to your local police department or sheriff's office, please report the illegal activity to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in the form of a cyber tip line. All information provided by you in the cyber tip is analyzed by a live human, a live analyst, and the submitted information is then sent over to the appropriate law enforcement agency. For example, if your child is engaging in exploitive activity online with an online predator who lives in New Jersey and your child lives in Georgia, NCMEC will send the report to law enforcement in New Jersey to investigate the online predator, and then it will also send the information to the appropriate law enforcement agency in Georgia, which typically will be the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. If you submit a cyber tip line report involving online exploitation that occurs in Georgia, it's very likely that it will fall on my desk or one of my colleagues' desks. Then it's always important to have open and honest conversations with your children, and always be a trusted adult your child can come to disclose any problems they may be having. Remember, you are your child's advocate. You always want to be someone that they can turn to for help. So even though you may be freaking out inside, you always want to maintain a calm demeanor and be someone that your child can come to if they're ever victimized online.
I'd just like to thank our presenters this evening. At this point, we're going to turn a little bit to a Q&A, and I'm going to ask Dr. Bell if she would be our moderator for that Q&A.
Absolutely. So I've seen a couple of things posted in the chat by some of our presenters, and it's really helpful information. I don't see any questions there, but please feel free to open your mic and ask questions if you have any. I'll give you that teacher pause. Wait a full 10, 15 seconds.
Yes,
Okay,
I have
I
a
see.
question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
I know you mentioned earlier in your presentation in regards to your internet security on like your home modem. I know a lot of companies like Comcast provide a modem, and you can password protect it, put a strong password. However, it also has like a second like hotspot that's available for all other Comcast users. That's a part of their system. They indicate that it is separate and it's totally, not connected to your personal internet. But I guess, I would love to hear if you're aware of that particular feature, and is it truly separate, or is there a way for someone, like a hacker or someone who's, tech savvy to be able to actually get off of that onto your system? Because it's something you can't disable it, I've
Right.
asked.
Okay, well, I will tell you that I myself am not familiar with that, but I am very familiar with Comcast. They are definitely one of our partners. So if you go to that website that we've posted at the bottom of the slide deck, Comcast has several links there to, their helpful hints and tips to put those kinds of safety features on their modems and that kind of thing. It's interesting what you mentioned. I can definitely research that and get back to you. I see it's Carlton, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I can get back to you on that particular piece of information. Given, I'll reach out to our Comcast contacts.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I do see another question posted in the chat. This is a great question. So what forms of parental controls are available on the school device? So let me talk about how Fulton County Schools protects our students when they're on our network, using the internet at our schools, and when they are using our Fulton County Schools issued devices. So we comply with the Child Internet Protection Act. This is a federal act that requires that schools keep our students safe from harmful material or content that they may access on the internet. So per that requirement, we have firewalls and filters in place on our network that block inappropriate content. For the most part, this content is blocked by categories. Like, for instance, we may block violence just as a broad category. And if a student were to enter a search for something that might yield violent content, then if they clicked on the link, a page would come up and say, this content is blocked. And we want to keep those categories in place. Sometimes they get it wrong, right? Sometimes the filters block content that's actually legitimate, and the student may need to get to something for research purposes, but we definitely err on the side of safety. So we keep those pretty conservative categories in place. We can also block specific content. So if we're alerted to something that our categories did not catch and our filters are not blocking, then we can set a parameter to block that specific page or that specific site. It's really helpful for our parents and our students and our teachers and staff to help us in that endeavor. So we have an information security team that looks at this content all the time. We're always trying to plug the holes, but you guys know how big the internet is, and it's really difficult to stay on top of everything and make sure that it's all safe. So we have a tip line on every one of our Fulton County Schools devices. It's a little icon and it says tip. And if you click it, you can create an anonymous tip that will be routed to me or to members of my department. And you could tell us, hey, I saw something inappropriate, and this is what it was, and this is where I was. The more details we have, the better, so that we can block it. But getting insider information is always helpful in that endeavor. We also have software on the devices that filter. Well, actually, what it does is it routes the traffic from the device back to our firewalls and filters. So no matter where the student is, if the student is at home and they're using their Wi-Fi at home on one of our devices, as they're using the internet, it routes back to the district network firewalls and filters. So our protections are in place if the student is at school or at home, if they're using a Fulton County Schools issued device that has not been tampered with, it has our image on it, it has our protections on it, then it's the same kinds of protection. The question in the chat was specifically about parental controls. At this time, we don't allow parents to do any kind of controls on the devices above and beyond what we do. However, we are currently investigating additional monitoring tools that our teachers can use in their classrooms to further restrict what the students are seeing or being able to access, potentially for the parents. We're constantly looking for tools that will help us in this regard. There is honestly nothing more important to us than keeping our students safe while they are using these really great tools. They are fantastic tools for learning, and we want them to use them but we want them to use them safely. And we deploy everything that we can on the devices and on our network to make sure that happens. So that's kind of a, yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to just add just another quick tidbit, if I would, if you don't mind. I'm actually a device coordinator at our school as well. And so, sir, just to make you feel just a bit safer, if I could, I actually see the students on a daily basis that bring devices to me. And they will come in and they'll say, Miss Chris, something's wrong with my computer. I have this message on it, and it's not letting me do this, that, or the other. And I can immediately look at that computer and I can tell before I even hand it to my school tech that the message on that computer tells us that a student has attempted to circumvent our firewalls. And just to ensure you that the firewalls are working. And when a student attempts to dispute it, they eventually have to just give it up and they just say, okay, Ms. Chris, you got me. And so our firewalls are working. And a lot of them even say, well, how'd you know I did that? And it's because we see this all the time. And so I just want you to know exactly what Dr. Bell is saying. We now can just look at them. I don't have to be with the student. I can just look at a computer and I can tell what's happened. The tips are working. I have students that come in and they'll tell me so and so, Miss Chris, he's tried to jailbreak the computer. And so all of this is happening. So I want you to know everything that we have in place, it is actually working.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That is exactly right. And again, we care so very deeply about that. I love that word you used, Miss Chris. You said jailbreak. That might be a term that's kind of foreign to our parents. I'd like to take an opportunity to talk about it. Jailbreaking is basically tampering with the computer itself, maybe finding a way to circumvent our system controls, maybe put another operating system on the device. These things are strictly against our policy for device usage. And we have reports that we generate. Ms. Chris, we've just recently generated a report. And, you know, last year we saw quite a few students trying to do this. I think TikTok taught them how to do it. And then we put some measures in place, some reports in place so that we revealed this, and then there were consequences. There are literally discipline consequences for jailbreaking or tampering with our devices for students. And of course, there are consequences. There are fines and fees if the devices are damaged. So we have all the protections that we possibly can in place. So, and Ms. Chris, thank you for your service as a device coordinator at Banneker High School, a very, very big and hard job. So thank you for that. Okay, so Susan, do we see any other questions in the chat that we haven't addressed?
Yes, we just had one come in. It says, it's from Mary Abraham. Sometimes the students use the school laptop for games and YouTube instead of doing their schoolwork or their homework. How can we control that situation?
Okay, really, really great question. So the monitoring tools that I just discussed earlier that we're investigating right now, that's one of the things that we hope can control it. You know, the tool should monitor and filter YouTube even further than it is doing today. And we should have some better management tools in place. We are right now in the process of evaluating the proposals that different vendors have sent us. So when I tell you this is happening, we are literally evaluating those proposals, and we hope to discuss it with the superintendent and talk to the board about it and get it over the line so that we can stand it up as soon as the school year starts for next year. But certainly I understand your frustration with the students doing things on the computer that is not necessarily educational or good for them. So we want to help you there as much as we can. Yeah,
That looks like we have it. Oh, thank you.
yeah, I see. So is laptop not issued by school, monitored, or controlled while kid is using at school? Is it so? Is the laptop monitored at school while the student is using it at school? I think that's the question. So we do keep login data for all devices, staff and students. And when you total all of our devices across the district, we have upwards of 100,000 devices. So we keep log data for when they're logging in, what they're logging into. We're getting more analytics around like Teams usage. We can see usage data on iReady. We can see that's a instructional tool they use in reading and math. We can see usage data on specific applications, but insofar as a a global monitor that really tracks every single step a student takes on a computer on a day-to-day basis, whether they're in school or out of school. We don't necessarily have that, but we do have basic login data. Does that help?
Dr. Bell, also, while those personal computers are logged onto our network Wi-Fi, our filters would be applied to that device because they're accessing our network. So I think that might be part of what that parent's concern is also.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Like, that's why I really paused on the question. Monitor means a couple of things to me as an IT professional. So monitor, are we keeping it safe? Yes, 100%. 100%. As I mentioned, there are always holes and we need your help. If you see something, say something and report it on the tip line. But we are monitoring, we are filtering, we are blocking content on those devices. But the other meaning for monitoring for me means, are you sort of being a big brother? Are you watching every single thing that staff and students do on a device? And my answer is, we keep login data and we do have analytics on certain key applications. Yes, okay, so I gotta think we answered that question.
I had a quick question, and first of all, great job, everyone presenting. This has been so very informative and helpful. Thank you guys so much. So this question, I know it has a broad range, and I just thought with the collective here, you might have make a median. And I know this can vary for different scenarios, different children, different families, but I guess across the board, on the age of a child getting a first phone or device, that a lot of this would cover. What would be the median that you guys see or would recommend be? Because I know it can vary per situation, per family, but I guess what statistics out there showing, is it usually fifth grade, sixth grade, 10th grade, fourth grade, and not take into account, of course, that the kids would want it sooner than that.
I will pitch that to Miss Chris, who probably has, from the school perspective, direct knowledge. You're on mute though.
I just love to talk on mute. So as far as students getting a phone, so my daughter got her first phone at 13. Her brother got a phone at 11. My nephew received a phone at 5. And I'm saying that to say it truly depends on your family dynamic, and it's going to be a family conversation. With my daughter, I was at home. I worked from home. So I was always at home. I was in her school all the time. Her teachers would call me and they would literally say, "Hey, where are you? Can you bring us lunch?" So I was basically with her all the time. She really didn't need a phone even when she was 13, you know? So I do think that you have to have my nephew's phone. He uses it because he's in the car all the time. As my brother, he's a basketball coach, so his phone basically it just has certain educational functions, educational games on it, and they have controls on it. So there's not a lot of things that he can do. It's more of like it's for a tablet situation. So I do think that it's a conversation that you have to have per family, but I do think that most of the sites you can't access them until you're 13. And as Dr. Bell referred to, when you start looking at the Online Protection Acts and SIPA and things like that, most of those things, it's 13. So that's around about the age that I would say. But I do think that it's going to be a family conversation that you would have. But if you were to ask me and it were my family, I'd probably say around, the tween stage.
Special
Thank you, Tina.
Agent
Helpful.
Giddens, you might add to this conversation from your lens from the GBI.
Sure. I think it kind of depends on how just kind of again what your family situation is. I would recommend, kids who are in elementary school, they don't need a cell phone that can access the internet. Of course, all their friends are going to have electronic devices, whether that's tablets, iPods, cell phones. A lot of elementary school kids are going to be using TikTok or Instagram and Facebook, and it's just not age appropriate. However, I understand, kids can beg their parents for these devices, and sometimes it's just easier to allow the child to have a device and kind of monitor their activity. But I would suggest kids around the middle school age, especially kids who are active in after school activities, sports activities where there may be transportation issues, where a child may need to contact the parent regarding changes in practice times or scheduling issues. And then certainly, of course, kids who are of driving age, whether that's at 15 when they have their learner's permit and can drive with an authorized adult, or at 16 when they actually have their own vehicle. That way, if they ever get into car trouble or an accident, they can contact their parents. So I would suggest anywhere in middle school, 13 and up. Again, is that realistic? Probably not, because a lot of young children have electronic devices. So as previously stated, it's just going to be dependent on each family's situation and things like that. But what I would suggest is just engaging in conversation about what is expected of your child having a cell phone. If they have a cell phone, what the parameters are. How much screen time are you going to allow them to have? What apps are you going to allow them to download on their cell phone? Taking it away at night, again, that's a big deal that we push out, because your child is going to act differently online when they're in the privacy of their own bedroom, when parents have gone to bed, and they have the freedom to do as they like, versus if they're sitting next to you in a family room or living room or kitchen table. So it's just dependent, of what is going to work best for you. There's absolutely no right or wrong answer. Just for parents out there, don't feel pressured by their children begging for phones. If you feel that your child isn't mature enough or isn't old enough for a cell phone, then you're making the right decision.
Yeah, and I would add that just because you get a child a phone doesn't mean that has to be the whole kit and caboodle, right? Like my son has a phone, but he does not have any social media accounts. And so it's totally appropriate to scaffold what things are available to students depending on their age. And remember that they're learning how to utilize this device, and it's natural. They're going to make mistakes and they're going to, falter. And we've got to be there as that trusted advisor to help guide them through and have those really open and honest communication, constantly ongoing, really talking about kids on a regular basis about why you want them to have things or why you don't want them to have things, not just saying, no, you can't have it, but really helping them to understand what the risks and rewards are of engaging in that behavior.
But I want to applaud you for that question. Lifting up that concern is, we certainly appreciate that. Earlier today, we had a parent talk about how the pressures of other parents and their home rules colliding with their personal home rules was problematic. So, here you are trying to set conservative rules for your students and their internet use at home, and then next door, the children next door is wide open. So we know the struggle is real for the parents out there in those situations. And as all of our presenters have mentioned here today, the only thing you can do is do what's right for your family, number one. And number two, have open, constant dialogue with your student. Now you've heard what we're telling them at school. So they're hearing these messages at school. Now you can start to lift these narratives up at home and have open dialogue. So I think it's just really healthy for us to talk about that here. So thank you for that. Okay.
I'm not certain if you've seen this, but we do have, forgive me, Agent Gittens had responded in the chat. We had some questions in the chat and they've been responded to.
Yep. Fantastic. Thank you, Agent Giddens. You're hired.
I am not certain I'm seeing anything else that's new.
I think I heard somebody.
That was just me. If
Okay.
I didn't answer C. Boswell's question adequately, please let me know, and I can try to give you a better answer if that didn't answer it for you.
You know what would also be helpful in the chat is parents, if there's anything else you would like to learn about, sort of in this realm, this great big wide world of technology, post it in the chat. We want this home internet safety framework to keep going and keep informing our families.
I have a question. My name is Jimmy. So the question is Apple better compared to the Android phone anyway for this purpose or not?
Can I start and then I'll let some of you kind of chime in. Fulton County Schools as a district issues Apple devices to all of our staff who require cell phones because they're administrators or that kind of thing. So for that reason, I can only say that the kinds of security measures that are on iPhones, on Apple devices, are very good. I can't really compare to Android because we don't really issue that and we're not in that world, but the iPhone protections are very, very good. I think Heather alluded to several that she uses with her son at home. Android, by its very nature, is an open source platform. The code is open source. iPhone or iOS is closed source. So even in the coding behind the scenes, Android has a lot of little loopholes that your students could possibly work around if they were so inclined. But I'll let some of our other presenters answer from their lens.
Was the question, or which devices, Apple or Android, have better security features? All I caught from Jimmy was I heard Apple devices and Android devices.
That's correct, right? So for the internet security purpose, compare these two, which one is better, right? That's my question. Yeah, because
Sure.
Right now my daughter has a Android-based phone, right? So that's how it feels as well, right? It's open source, and some of the security feature is not that good. I feel the same, right? So that's why. But I want to confirm that.
I would just reiterate what Dr. Bell stated. Certainly, there's going to be pros and cons to each type of device and software settings. I don't really have too much more to offer. I know both devices are very secure as long as they have strong passcodes to access the device, and then certainly you can monitor safety applications through parental controls. But certainly, if you have specific questions regarding security features, I would contact Android directly and discuss those concerns with them because they work directly with their Android devices.
Okay, thank you both. Yeah, I got it.
This is not a paid advertisement, but I'm Team Apple.
I've had both, and I'm Team Apple.
I become one soon, okay? So.
Okay, Jimmy. We'll call Apple and get our cut. So,
I had another quick question, and this could go to everybody in the panel, but also my wife just asked me this one. So my son, he's 10. He is now getting on like PlayStation, and he has a Switch, so he's on those gaming devices where you can still connect to the network and and play with friends. Are there any type of restrictions or things we should be aware of there that could be like for exploitation that, I mean, I know it is a gaming console and it is basically people to go to play games, but I know with like Fortnite and different things that, you can play, people you don't know, people you do know that aren't just friends. Anything around that would be helpful. If that's on the radar.
Well, I'll let Agent Giddens perhaps speak to the actual connection part. But one thing that I do remind our students about, especially when they first get devices such as the PlayStations and the gaming devices and any new and cool anything, the first thing that they think to do is to go post it online and let everybody know that, hey, I just got the latest and greatest anything. And I just like to advise them to just be mindful that you're letting everybody know that you have a possession that somebody else may be interested in. And I know that it's sad to say, but you're just opening yourself up to theft, and it's sad, but you have to be very careful. And so we just say, be careful about what you post online. Hey, I have a PlayStation at my house. And then your mom, who's about to take you on spring break and posting that, hey, we're in Cancun, and you just a week ago posted that you have a PlayStation, and those kind of things go together. So we just, want to be mindful of the stuff that we're posting. That's all I have about that.
I will say, as a parent, it can be very overwhelming, the number of games that are out there and all the different, applications that, our kids want to have access to. And it annoys my child to no end. But I have things set up so that he has to request access before he can download anything to his personal device. I have all the controls set on the PlayStation so he can't download things without me checking first. and I read the reviews, go online, look and see, like, is there a chat feature? Are you talking to your kid about chatting and what they're talking about in chat and not sharing personal information, and, having conversations that with them, letting them know that sometimes people pretend to be other, than who they actually are. And you might think you're talking to another 10-year-old, but you're really talking to an adult. Who's wanting to take advantage. So having that open dialogue and conversation and really doing your due diligence as a parent and saying, like sometimes my son will come to me on a Tuesday and say, can I have such and such game? And I'll say, you know what? I don't have time to do the research on that until this weekend. But this weekend, I promise I'll read it. I'll look into the reviews. I'll see what the age rating is. I'll look at, why is it rated that age rating? Is it for violence? Is it for language? Is it, what is the reason? And really making informed decisions about what things you give your kids access to. There are parental controls on all kinds of devices, gaming devices, all of that. Google it, see like what kind of parental controls are available, and then leverage those to wherever you can.
So a couple of questions have been posted in the chat that I think is a nice segue here. So I hope I pronounced this right. Leah, is that right? Zhang?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. Leah posted a question that said, my 15-year-old protests when I try to check her phone or computer and says that I'm interfering with her privacy. Am I allowed to check her phone and her computer as a parent? And then she goes further and says, can the school provide us some documentation that says we're allowed? My answer to that, and I'm sure that all of our presenters would have their own way of answering to the affirmative, is yes. You have absolutely every right. Our students are minors until they reach the age of 18. And I would further tell them, Leah, that tell your student that privacy really doesn't exist on the internet. There is no promise of privacy in any email, any post, anything leaves a trace, as our presenters talked about here today. You're leaving a digital footprint every time you put something in writing and you post something. There is no promise of privacy just by the very nature of the internet itself. So you definitely have every right. Our device user agreement is something that we want our parents and our students to sign off on. We will have it. We have it in Infinite Campus right now. So if, as a parent, you log into Infinite Campus, you can go to your parent portal and you can see the device user agreement there. Next year, I'm really excited about this. I'm not even sure Miss Chris knows this, or I think Heather does, but we will have it as a part of the student code of conduct. So the device user agreement will be there, and we want all families to sign off on the code of conduct, and the device user agreement is there. And Leah, I think you'll find language there that you can share with your student that can really, reiterate to them that yes, not only do you have a right to look at their phone and computer, but really a responsibility, because we need your help in making sure that device is taken care of and that it's used for educational purposes. The device user agreement really talks about that very strongly. That's what this device should be used for. So I hope I've answered that. The other question, I believe Mary posted a question related to device or internet browsing history on the iPhone and on a device. And actually, Mary, I'm going to tell you that that question kind of stumps me. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, we do keep some login information, but whether or not we could send you a log or how you would be able to see deleted history, I am not sure. I will definitely have to get back to you on that. I will say, and again, I know I've said this many times, these monitoring tools that we're looking at, this should really help with that. We should be able to manage where the students are going on the devices a little better. But thank you for that question, because that's something I can take back to the team and we can lean into it. I can definitely see as a parent why you would want to be able to get that. On the iPhone, deleted history. I don't know if anybody here can answer that question. I do not know that. That's something I would have to look into as well. Anybody know about deleted history on an iPhone?
I'll take that, Dr. Bell. I mentioned in the chat, it kind of depends on if your Apple device is set up for iCloud backups. It's possible if the iPhone was backed up recently, you can restore the device to the most recent backup. It's possible to then obtain previously deleted browser history. Otherwise, from a non-law enforcement standpoint, once the browsing history is deleted, it's deleted. Certainly, if there's a criminal investigation, law enforcement has software tools that may be able to obtain deleted information, whether that's browsing history, photos, videos, text conversations, phone calls. However, there would need to be a criminal crime being investigated for that tool to be able to be used. Going back to Leah's question, I'd like to address that as well. Certainly, I can't speak with regards to any devices that are given out to students through the schools. I'm not familiar with that process or the agreements between the school and students. But with regards to personally owned cell phones, laptops, computers, tablets, Leah, that's a great question that not only affects your family, it affects just about every family. And the questions that I would ask, and certainly I don't need you to answer them, but questions that I would ask is, who bought the cell phone? Who bought the laptop? Who bought the computer? Who is paying for the cellular plan? If the answer is your family or an adult, then your daughter doesn't really have a leg to stand on if you bought that device, if you're paying for the service, and if your daughter's not allowing you to view her cell phone because she says it's an invasion of privacy, something I would recommend is taking the phone away. And if she's able to purchase her own cell phone, then she would have the right to her own privacy, since that's her own purchased device. But if that's something that you as a family have purchased for her and pay for the plan, then you have every right to examine her cell phone. So it's kind of a tricky situation, and it's dependent on each family, but that's my 2 cents. I deal with that a lot when I'm investigating child exploitation. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents there.
But Agent Giddens, if, so this is a 15-year-old, and even if he or she got their own money, bought their own cell phone, they're still a minor.
Mm-hmm.
So if in the course of using that device, some crime is committed, the parents are, how does that 15-year-old sort of tried in a court of justice? Are the parents part of that? Because it's a minor.
Right. Certainly, if it's a minor who's the victim of a crime, we would hope that the minor child would be willing to cooperate with law enforcement and to turn over that device for forensic processing. However, if the minor is a subject of a criminal investigation, the parents can't really force the child to give up the cell phone, because then we're dealing with passcode accessibility and things like that. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from. From a legal standpoint, it may be a little different.
Wow. Well, I have learned a lot. And honestly, parents, you guys have asked some really, really great questions. Over the course of the year that we've been doing this program, uh, several lectures and presentations like this, you guys have asked the best questions. So thank you for leaning in and engaging. Susan, did you see anything else while we were talking?
I have not. I've been looking. Looks like everything's been answered. If we did by some chance miss something, I'm going to put my email address into the chat. So if anyone wants to send me a message, maybe they think of it later on tonight, and I can be sure I can correspond with the appropriate person to get an answer. And also as a reminder, we are going to post this presentation online, both as a PDF for the presentation itself, as well as the recording of the webinar. So if there were some things you want to go back, maybe you didn't quite hear something or wanted to go back and look at a screen and take some notes, we'll have that ready for you.
Everybody certainly got their money's worth tonight, an hour and a half.
Yes.
Of
good
really quality
conversation.
presentation. I really like to thank all the presenters tonight for their time and for their dedication in their field and helping to protect our students. Thank you, parents, again, for your time tonight. We appreciate your participation. So, Susan, unless there's anything else, I think we can say goodnight.
Thank
Right.
you, everyone.
That's right.
All
Let's say
right.
Thank
goodnight.
you, everyone.